Hello, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Open Book Broadcast, where we talk about anything and everything writing and publishing, and we are open books about it. I'm your host, Allie Berthium with The Right Place, Right Time. I'm an award-winning author and an international book coach and ghostwriter, and I am obsessed with talking about writing and publishing and bringing on guests in that space or adjacent to that space to talk about all the things to help you as aspiring authors do this thing the right way. This year, our theme has been bravery in all of the things to do with writing and publishing. And today, for June, we are talking about bravery in outing yourself. Now, some of us might have very specific ways that they see outing yourself, but we're going to dive into the intricacies and complexities and layers of what it means to out yourself. So today, to help me with this conversation, I have two wonderful, beautiful, brilliant guests, Suzette Mullen and Andy Vargo. And I'm so happy to have them here. I'm going to let them say hi before I formally introduce them.
Hello, glad to be here.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Allie. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh. So excited to have you both. So before we dive into the details, let's formally introduce you to our audience. Andy Vargo is the Own Your Awkward guy. He helps people turn their insecurity into their superpower through his work as a keynote speaker, author, life coach, and comedian. He is fun, quirky, and authentic in a way that makes tackling deep issues meaningful and less scary. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you.
And Suzette Mullen is a memoir and nonfiction book coach, speaker, and the author of the memoir, The Only Way Through is Out by University of Wisconsin Press, named one of February's most anticipated releases by Lambda Literary. Foreword Reviews calls her book Candid, inspirational, and emotive memoir that issues a stirring call to women to choose self-actualization. Who is not behind that? I mean, I'm here for that. Suzette's essays have appeared in the New York Times, Today.com, and Brevity, among other outlets. And her Your Story Finder book coaching business, Suzette guides writers to find their deepest stories and define their big ideas. Welcome, Suzette.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I don't know if I can keep up with Andy, though.
Oh, no. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Okay.
Beautiful. All right. So let's just start with, who is Andy and Suzette? At the end of the day, the office door is shut and the lights are off. Tell us a little bit about you. And I'm gonna point to Andy, the Own Your Awkward guy, to go first.
All right. Well, I guess I'm just that guy that can make any situation quirky and awkward in a way that, isn't meant to be. Like, I'll say something and it's like, oh, I guess that wasn't the right time for that. Not totally inappropriate all the time, but I do comedy. So every once in a while I have learned when to keep my mouth shut. But I found that that's really kind of the heart of just being okay with who we are, instead of just always trying to put this pretense and fake it on. And for so many years, I did that. I tried to hide and cover things and fit into a mold. And it's just so freeing not to be in that space anymore and actually be like, oh, no, it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Love it. All right. Suzette, who are you when the lights are off and the office door is shut?
Yeah, so I love that question. I actually, just before the broadcast, I did a little quiz on the New York Times. It was a friendship style quiz. And the style that I got was Firefly. And so Firefly is someone who enjoys socialization and being with people, but needs to recharge, needs some alone time to recharge. And when we're with people, we really crave deep and intimate conversations. We're not, we're not people that stay on the surface. So I would say who I am when, the office door closes, I'd like to think that I'm the same person when the office door is open and when the office door is closed. I am someone who, I crave connection and I seek connection. And I love to have deep, intimate, meaningful conversations and explore deep, meaningful ideas. So that's what I do in my work. And that's what I do when I'm off the clock. And I probably need a little more lightness and levity and a little more Andy in my life, but that's who I am.
Wonderful. I love it. So I think you can get probably a little more Andy in your life by going on to Andy's really fabulous podcast. Here's a shameless plug. Own Your Awkward. Andy's a great host. And so Suzette and Andy, I hope you get a chance to reconnect after today over there.
Sure.
Definitely.
I love that you take quizzes with the New York Times. I saw that quiz come through and I thought, I really want to go take that quiz. And then I reminded myself that I was way too behind in client work to be going down the Google rabbit hole to do that. But your friendship style reminds me of myself in a way. And so now I'm even more curious. So now I'll just have to carve out time and go take the quiz.
It took about 30 seconds or a minute to take the quiz. So it's not a big time commitment.
Okay, cool. And I'm going to play along. So who am I when the office door shuts and the lights are off? I'm the person who gets home and I get into my pajamas within 30 seconds of walking through the door. So blazers and fun glasses, like in the office, when I get home, it's like sweats, leggings, t-shirts, like whatever I can get to just kind of like slough off the day of being the boss and just like get real comfy and cozy at home. Okay.
Allie, that was actually kind of one of the questions in the quiz. One of the options did involve getting into your pajamas at a very early time of day. So just look forward to that.
There's a box for you to check right there.
All right, cool. I know that I'm going to answer that one. Okay, so I want to give our audience a chance to learn a little bit more about what you do in your businesses before we dive into the theme of our conversation. So Suzette, we'll go back in reverse. Tell us a little bit about what you do as the book coach in the nonfiction memoir space.
Yeah, so I work with memoir and nonfiction authors or aspiring authors, and I help them really get clear on the story that they want to tell. I will work with writers at different parts of the process, but what I love to do, and I think it's sort of my superpower, is helping people at the beginning of the process get really clear on why they want to write this book, what it is really about, what they've come to the page to say, and who it's for. And my style is warm and inviting, but also tough love. I don't let writers, I don't let writers off the hook. I want them to dig deep, because the world doesn't need any more books that are skating on the surface. So that's what I do. And I work with writers one-on-one, and I also have a group coaching program.
Beautiful. All right, Andy, what's your claim to fame when it comes to what you're doing in your business?
My whole thing is about helping people be their best selves by just being okay with themselves. And, if I'm working with corporations and through keynotes and follow-up consultations, it's really about knowing that people are overpaid because they are not bringing their full selves to the job. And it's not about, give everybody a pay cut. I'm not saying that. I'm saying let's let them be themselves so that they're not showing up with 70% effort because they're using that other 30% to think, how am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to act? And I try to do that at the very base level, just by being okay, being fun, and realizing we don't have to put a big, huge system in place. Let's just show up, be ourselves, and know that there's more than meets the eye to everybody in the space that we're in. And so through that, it's with businesses for keynotes, one-on-one life coaching. I do group sessions as well, and I do different workshops throughout the year that are focused on different aspects of being yourself.
Yeah. So one of the things that just kind of dropped in after listening to the two of you is that you're kind of both in the business of like helping people be their true selves, because Suzette, I think you would agree, because I'm in the memoir space as well, that memoir is 100% about being authentic and vulnerable and honest and coming across on the page as a real person, and real people, right, are nuanced and complicated and have multiple shades. But in order for you to tell your story the most authentically, you have to be okay with who you are and what you've been through and own all of it, right? The light and the shadow side of who we are. And I feel like in a digital world where we can post about all the rosy things that are happening and make our image and the perception of our life look one way, right? The three of us are kind of like, let's shatter that whole idea of what it looks like on the outside to get really comfortable with the mess and like figure out how to just be, you know, even in the complication.
Yeah. You okay if I jump in
Please.
to respond to that? Yeah, absolutely. I think that that is one of the things that stories can do, whether they're stories that we tell as a keynote speaker or in a book, is that we all are we're all complicated beings, and we all have feelings inside and thoughts that we feel like, if anyone ever knew what I was thinking, right? And we can feel very alone in those thoughts. In my book, which I'll just happen to have here, The Only Way Through Is Out, I talk about writing the unspeakable, and that is, you know, the way I define that is it is all those things that we think that if anyone ever knew that I was thinking this thing, like they wouldn't like me, they wouldn't, you know, they would, all of those things. And so yes, we see curated lives on Instagram and all the social media platforms. And when a writer or a speaker is willing to share the underbelly, to share that, you know, as you said, the shadow side and the light side, that makes us all feel less, makes the receiver, whether it's the reader or the audience in a speech, makes us feel less alone. It makes us feel more connected. And that, to me, is why we do this work. You know, I've received some incredible messages since my book came out, mostly from women that I know, and many women I don't know, who are like, I don't know a single other person who's going through the thing I'm going through, and reading your story gives me hope. And, you know, that's really what it's all about at the end of the day, for me anyway.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and I mean, really, it's all about owning your awkward, right? Like, because we could use awkward, right, synonymously with a number of things. But when you own your stuff, you give permission for other people to own theirs, right? When you're brave enough to own you, other people are brave enough to like figure out how to own them, which is like a great segue into today's theme, right? So outing ourselves in our writing, and writing could be book form, but I also want to acknowledge that writing could also be your social media content. It could be the keynote that you're working on. It could even be your comedy set, right? I mean, there's plenty of room for like the self-deprecating kind of humor, right? But that ultimately speaks to something much greater, because a lot of comedy is still telling a story at the end of the day, right? If you're paying attention. So let's just start here. Like, what does outing mean? You know, what types of ways could we out ourselves in our writing? What does it mean to you, Andy and Suzette?
Well, I would say it really just means being brave and being true to yourself. It's, we're living our life as best we can. And I think one thing that Suzette just said that is so powerful is that people feel like they are living an experience that no one else is experiencing until someone has the bravery to share, hey, I feel this way. I mean, how many times have you been, in an elevator and it smells funny and it's like someone finally says, was that me, or was that you, or it wasn't me? But someone has the bravery to call it out. Like, it can be that simple. And one of the things that I say is, we're all in the closet about something. Like, it could be that you love black licorice and you're surrounded by black licorice haters, and you just don't want the world to see that you're not carrying red vines in the movie theater. But there's something that we feel different and that we want to hide. And for myself, I came out at 40. It was, I'd been married for a long time. I had 3 kids that were teenagers. It was the hardest and scariest thing that I've ever done, but it was the most true and best thing I could ever do to be better in every relationship that I'm in. I can show up honestly. I don't have to question, oh God, are they going to figure this thing out about me that I had demonized in my head, that it would be just the worst thing if anybody ever knew this one fact. And when we demonize something, we're being so mean, we're bullying ourselves. So being able to say, you know what, that part's okay. And I would also just really quickly add that it's not like, oh, I flipped that switch and now I'm great and I'm out and life is awesome and I never have a day of depression again. It's a process, and you go through and you say, you know what, I'm going to take this step and I'm going to run out of breath halfway up the mountain, and I'm going to regroup, and I'm going to look back and go, man, I made it. The view's a lot better here. I'm going to keep going. And then you get a little further.
Oh my gosh. Before you jump into that, I just have to say that the outing ourselves as a process, I think, is so huge. Like that by itself, right? Whether you're coming out because of sexual orientation, you're coming out, let's say, as a survivor of childhood trauma, whatever it is, coming out is not a one and done thing, right? Just like healing is not a final destination. Right. Like coming out isn't like, oh yeah, I'm free. Like, my wings are no longer clipped and now I can just be, right? With no problems and everything's, really great. So beautiful. I love this one like catchphrase here, outing ourselves as a process. All right, Suzette, sorry.
Yeah, well, now I know why you invited Andy and me to be together.
I didn't want to tell your stories to one another, but I was like, I'm just going to divinely, pair you up. And see what happens.
Andy, I'm gonna suggest you should read my book. I would absolutely love to be on your podcast because we have a lot in common. I'm even more of a late bloomer because I was in my mid-50s when I came out. 2 children, long-term marriage. Perfect looking life on the outside. And it was the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. And really one of, tying into what outing means. And I love that outing is a process. I think authenticity is a process. And really the message of my book, I have 2 messages. One is, and they both relate to process. One is that authenticity is worth the cost. I mean, there is a cost to choosing authenticity, or, we could say outing ourselves in whatever way. If there wasn't a cost, we would have done it a long time before, right? And so in my context, and it sounds like in these contexts, there was a cost about leaving an established life. There's a cost about hurting other people. There's a cost about leaving a life of heterosexual privilege. And I mean, we could go on. And ultimately, being yourself, being fully yourself, which is what I think authenticity means, is worth the cost. And the other message that I have with my book, which I think does also tie in with the whole outing, is that it's never too late to live out loud. It's never too late for a new beginning. And what comes and the reason that I tie that in is that, like Andy said, outing's not one and done, right? I mean, whether it's about your sexual orientation, it's about coming out as a writer, coming out as I'm really just beginning to step into the role as a speaker. And this is all coming out of the fact that I'm an author now, and people want to hear me speak. And yes. And people want to hear me speak. And I have a woman who's a speaking coach, and she's been helping me. And of course, the first thing I said to her was, I'm not a public speaker. And we had all those conversations, and I said, oh yeah, that's exactly what my writers say to me. I'm not really a writer, and all of those things. So we're constantly being given new opportunities for bravery, for becoming more fully who we are, because we're always changing. And that whole idea about a new beginning, I love that, because I think that many of us, especially people of a certain age, but even younger people, they feel like once they've set themselves on a path, that they have to stay on that path, because the proverbial, I made my bed and now I have to lie in it. And I think that for, hopefully my story, and it sounds like Andy's story, and I'm sure there's many, many other stories out there of people who have made some big changes later in life, and we're thriving on the other side. And yes, Andy, I love that. And I'm going to stop in 1 second. I love what you said about that. It isn't all like, it's not like my life is perfect now at all. Like I've got some new beginnings brewing, that some are hard and some are easy, but isn't it freeing to just, to not be hiding anymore?
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, so many great takeaways. Pumping up the banners here.
Yeah.
with, and actually, as you were both sharing your stories, I was thinking about what's my coming out story. And, so I'm heterosexual, so I don't have the coming out story, in terms of sexual orientation. I'm in the dominant or whatever, culture that you want to call it. Though I don't think that's so dominant anymore. And I'm pretty happy about that. So, happy Pride Month. I should just throw that out there now because we're in June. But I think about, before my business, just a year and a half to 2 years before forming my business and going out as an entrepreneur, my marriage ended. And I had to recognize that though I was a new mom, I had a toddler, I was very unsatisfied in my life, that everything felt like a facade. Once I saw what didn't suit, I couldn't unsee it, and was at this crossroads of like having to decide, do I stay? Because there's nothing ultimately wrong with, my partner. I have a beautiful house, I have a beautiful home, I have a stable job, at the time. I've got a beautiful, healthy son. From outward appearances, everything looks really, really great. But man, in here, I felt very much not self-actualized, not living up to my truer self or my highest potential. And because I ultimately wanted the very best for my son, for him to grow up to feel free enough to be whoever he wanted to be, I recognized that I wasn't modeling that, like not even close, and having to make the decision to choose the harder path, but the harder path which led to a better me, like a person that I felt strongly about being, and felt better about being than the life and the person that I was currently. And having to then tell people that I'm getting a divorce, that I've moved in with my parents, that I'm now co-parenting half the time, and now I don't have my son, which also brought up all kinds of things about motherhood. And was I failing as a parent? And, was I failing in adulthood because, I was just a touch over 30 and going through all these things that I didn't picture going through, and nobody around me was going through anything similar. And it was hard to say those things out loud. And yet at the same time, I couldn't have felt more like myself, even among all of the debris, right, of like the past life being just kind of like knocked down. It was almost easier to deal with because I at least felt stronger about who I was. And I don't know if the two of you felt the same way, like, even though it was really hard to make the decisions that you did to like go into the good night, if you at least felt more resilient in doing it because you were staying true to who you were.
Yeah, I can jump in on that to start. I definitely had those moments because I can relate to that idea of, before you go through any life change, you look at, man, on paper, my life looks great. Why would I change this? And that's where you get the friends that are, really, are you sure? What are you thinking? Do you really want to do this? And that's all those little comments that actually add up to it being scarier to make the change. And I remember being probably 6 to 9 months out of the initial start of coming out and being divorced and living in this room that I'm renting. I felt like a monk. I left with the clothes on my back and just rented a furnished room. And I remember sitting there thinking, man, I knew when rock bottom was, because it was there day after day after day. And it wasn't even before I came out. I had that feeling of the crux to come out was that I was afraid to keep living the way I was, because I knew that I wasn't actualizing myself. I wasn't bringing my best self as a father or in my relationship or in any way. And I wasn't doing anything that felt like, I was like, I'm just checking the boxes and going through the motions. And so when you step into actually just being yourself and being okay with making that change, leaving the relationship that's bad, starting a different career, whatever that thing is, it's scary. And when you don't see the results right away. And so we tend to then think, did I make the right choice? What was this for? And I had to start journaling, and say, your life sucks, or life, it's not what you want it to be. What are you going to do about it? And I realized I had control, that I could sit there and have a pity party every day and be like, man, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I don't even have a boyfriend. What did I even come out for? And then I would make myself write 3 things every day that I could do to make the next day better. And pretty soon life very quickly got so much better, because at first it was things like get up on time, brush your teeth, take a shower. I was like, I might have to write that down 3 days in a row or a week in a row because I'm a slow learner. But pretty soon it was things like meet a friend for lunch or go for a hike. And I was having more good things that I was making myself do than I even could fit into my journal. And I realized that I had the power and I had the control, and that it was that growth, and that I could look back and go, you know what, things are at least going the right way. Even if I still have a bad or tough day or bigger challenges, at least mentally they're not as big.
Yeah, I can relate to so much of that, Andy. I had a rock bottom moment. I mean, I had several, but I had the A moment that I talk about in my book. And I remember leading up to that, when things, that it was yes, after I'd made the decision, after I had separated, and I love your idea about writing down 3 things that would make the day better. And I'm gonna steal that idea. I love that idea going forward, because I think we can all do that even when things are going well in our lives. But what I did, sort of that more typical gratitude process, and 3 things I'm grateful for today. And when you're at rock bottom, like, you're scraping the barrel. Sometimes it's like, that I got out of bed, or that I made myself a meal, and all of that. And I can relate. And I think I'm actually starting to work on my next book, and my next book is really kind of talking about this exact topic, which is what happens after you've made a big leap, and when things are hard, when things don't seem to be working out the way you thought they would, and you do start second guessing yourself, and you do start wondering, did I make the biggest effing mistake of my life, and all of that. And one of the epiphanies I had, and it took me a while, was that I realized that I was experiencing deep grief. I was experiencing grief about, it wasn't that I'd made a mistake. It was that there's a lot of loss that is, that cost of authenticity, right? So that loss of, and Ellie, when you leaving a marriage for whatever reason, in many cases, I mean, sometimes people leave a marriage and they're just, they're ecstatic and everything, because it was a really, really bad situation. But it sounds like in our situations, there was good in the situations, and there were things that weren't so good. And then there's grief of leaving the thing behind, the loss of the dream, the, loss of, in my case and all of our cases, that intact family. And you start seeing all these other families, that are on Instagram and all the things and all the, so I think this is something we don't talk about enough, which is why I want to explore it in my next book, is about grief after a big leap. We hear about, oh, it's so fabulous to be authentic and free. And it is, all those things are true, right?
Yeah.
And the other part's true as well. And it's the part that another kind of unspeakable, that we, we're the ones who made the change, right? So we feel kind of like almost embarrassed to share that, it's not always all that perfect.
Yeah. One of the things that I say kind of behind the scenes is the hardest thing we'll ever do is be ourselves. In fact, this is okay. I'm putting it out into the universe. Someday I'm going to give a TEDx talk, and it's going to be all around this question of, why do we keep asking our kids, what do you want to be when you grow up, instead of who do you want to be? I really want us to culturally shift this on its head, so that like earlier in life we can get to authenticity, instead of having to go through these really hard, painstaking, later in life, epiphanies that are so much harder to like work through, because it's like, oh man, if we had just leaned into who we were earlier, then maybe we would have avoided all this like suffering and heartache. But I think that it's true. The hardest thing we'll ever do is be ourselves, and that will continue to be true, right? Because even if we've left the marriage and now this part is better, we'll step into a new level of growth. And at some point we're going to meet up against discomfort again. We're going to meet up against, how we were raised, cultural definitions, cultural expectations, the circle that we're keeping, right? And then having to shift and grow out wherever our soul or self is meant to expand into. So we'll always be working on this. We will always be working on trying to be ourselves. Now, wait, let me go to the comments because we got people that are just jumping in here. All right. So we've got other people who really want to go home and get their PJs on and do their own thing. That's from earlier in our conversation. And then we've got humans are layers. We need to take our time and peel back our truths. Yep. Somebody else said, super topic. The world needs more authenticity. We've got, this is such a fabulous conversation. Somebody's given me shout outs for TEDx. Thank you. I appreciate that support. Somebody else wrote, there is beauty in vulnerability, whether that grief happened voluntarily or not. Yes, so true. And before we go to what I was going to ask, we do have a question from somebody who is live with us. She says, I do have a question that I'd love your opinion on. How do you gain the courage to rise from your authentic rock bottom when your environment is filled with people who aim to remain inauthentic? Reading it out loud. I'll read it one more time. How do you gain the courage to rise from your authentic rock bottom when your environment is filled with people who aim to remain inauthentic?
I'm going to throw that over to the life coach.
All right.
And Andy, go.
All right. Well, here's the thing. I feel like it's a negative thing to say, but I feel like we are more fear-driven than we ever want to admit. And when we become afraid of staying in the space of being inauthentic, when we become more afraid of staying there than facing the thing that's keeping us from making the change, that's when we're going to be willing to take that risk. And unfortunately, we hear this all the time with people who go through major life changes. When you go through a divorce, when you stop drinking alcohol, when you stop doing things that are not good for you. Being inauthentic is not good for you. And when you start making healthy choices, you lose certain friends and you have to be in certain circles. And so it's a hard thing because the life that we're living in the moment might be the only life that we know. And so it's very hard to picture moving on without those pieces of our life. And we have to trust the process and trust that the people who are there for you are going to show up and support you. And you are going to have people who say, wow, I didn't know that about you. I've got your back. And some of those people are going to be people that you weren't very close with, that you become close with because you started being your authentic self. And the other people, at least for me, they quietly just kind of faded away. I didn't have a lot of big, oh my God, I can't be with you now. You can't be my friend because you're this person. They just stopped showing up. And when they stopped showing up, other people were there that I didn't notice before because they were more in the center stage for me.
Yeah.
I would agree. I had a very similar experience. And the only thing I want to add is that I do think for some people in our lives, it can take them longer. I mean, you as the person who is stepping into your authenticity, you get to decide how you're going to manage those relationships. But I had a couple of family members that I talk about in my book where, initially they were not particularly supportive, and which was very painful and very difficult. But they were important people in my life, and they did come along. It was a journey for them as well. So I think the additional piece I would say is that if they're important people in your life, try to be patient with them. And some of them, they've known you as to be a certain person for however long, and it can be hard for other people to adapt to the fact that you're stepping into a life that looks different. And some of them may never come along, but some of them will.
Yeah, just briefly, Allie, if I can. One thing that just reminded me with what Suzette said is that we have to also remember, because people will take a little while, you have to first decide, is this person worth that time? Like, is this someone that's in my space that I really value that relationship and I want to give them that chance? But remember, behind the scenes, we've taken years coming to terms with this ourselves. So we have to give people, we can't show up and say, you got to take me the way I am today when I was completely different in your eyes yesterday. We have to give them that time and space to go through a process of relearning who we are, and give them that space. And if they're worth that in our lives, let them go through their journey of understanding the changes we're making.
Yeah. So two things I want to add. One, it's possible that your environment right now, right, it could be filled with people who are inauthentic, but maybe there are people outside of your environment, like just one step removed, that you knew in some other life, that are ready to reconnect with you and are also going through a similar journey and like ready to like, you know, go through it together. You know, when I was going through my divorce, I lost some friends, right? Like, you know, it was kind of like we divided the his and her dishes, and then we had to divide the his and her friends in a way, right? But I found myself reconnecting with people that I had once been close to, because now I had more time and availability half of the week to try to keep my mind and my energy occupied with people, you know, who I hadn't had a chance to really connect with. And some of those people I had a chance to connect with really fueled me during that time frame. They were there for me because I had lost some of these other people, right, as a part of this change and transition. The other thing that I would say, and I know this to be true from the entrepreneurial standpoint, is, you know, I felt a little bit alone and lost, you know, before becoming an entrepreneur, going through all these big life changes and like resetting and reestablishing my life. But, you know, when I stepped into the entrepreneurial space and I started to network and I started to put myself out there, I found tons of people who had similar mindset, worldview, and values that I did. And I've created an entirely new environment, an entirely new network and community of people that I didn't know 5 years ago, right? But now it's like, oh my gosh, like just one conversation sometimes with these people, and like I feel back on track, or I feel re-energized or refueled. So, you know, it's hard to think about not having the environment that we're used to, even if we know that it's not right for us. But there could be another environment that we're stepping into that will help us to thrive and help us to reach like that next level too. So, you know, I feel like with any loss or any shift or change, right, there is a shedding of stuff, but then there's also a blossoming of something else, right? We're never just like stripping away and then left with nothing, right? Usually, if we think about cycles and seasons, you know, something might fall away, but something's about to come that's gonna, you know, replace what once was. It's hard to see it, of course, when you're going through it. Somebody in the comments says, right on, Andy, we will gradually attract those who will support us. It's all about time. So people are eating up what the two of you have to offer. So real quick, we've talked about the costs, right? Like things that might cost us, even though we agree that it's all worth it. But like, what are the benefits? Like, let's just, you know, real quick here, let's just remind people what the benefits of doing this hard, scary thing is.
Well, I mean, the benefit is that you wake up most days feeling at ease with who you are. I mean, I have a I go to a co-working space, which is where I am right now. It's across the street from where I live, and every day I pack up a little lunch and I walk across the street, and I do my own writing, or I do the work with writers, and then I pack my backpack back up and I walk across to go home. And 95% of the time, and I'm walking home, I think, you know, I had a really good day today. I feel really good. And there's just that there is nothing really better, I think, than feeling aligned with yourself and feeling at ease with yourself. And when you are that way, there's all the ripple effects, all the spillover effects, the books, the speaking engagements, the connections with people. But it all comes from that core of just being who you are in the world.
Yeah. Andy, you want to?
I love that. Yeah. I have very similar feeling of just that feeling okay is an amazing thing. I look at it, this is almost a little bit dangerous, but it's like I feel like I'm Superman. Like once you face your biggest fear, it's like nothing's gonna stop me now. Like I've had other challenges. Like I've had huge financial resets and all sorts of stuff that's just been horrific to like actually think about going through. But when you faced that thing that was so scary that you fell asleep worrying about and woke up worrying about and went through the day being stressed about, once you face that and it's no longer a threat, it's like, well, throw whatever at me. I don't. It's like you're bulletproof. And I go through the day. I'm like, I hang out with friends. I do what I want to do. I have a job that I absolutely love. I can't even picture retiring because the things that I'm doing are the things that I am so passionate about that I don't want to stop working on it. And that I just can't replace that feeling. And I only wish I had it sooner. But if I didn't go through the journey, I wouldn't be in the place and I wouldn't appreciate it and I wouldn't be as good at it.
Yeah. And I'm going to add in here too that the benefit is like the ripple effect, right? So it's just being aligned with yourself and at ease with who you are makes your own kind of like world so much better. But then you also have that ability at that point to then kind of pay it forward, right? Inspiring others, modeling for others, giving other people permission because they see and they look to you as somebody who's done it, been through it, journeyed first kind of thing. And so we have that ability as well to not just change our world, but also the corner of the world that we're in, whatever that might look like. And, one of the reasons that I love the memoir space is because I truly believe that through memoir, through that kind of personal story sharing, right, that we have the ability to transform the world. Because when we activate our own healing, which I think it just kind of naturally occurs through the memoir writing process, we activate our healing, but then in sharing, we activate somebody else's. And I feel like if each one of us on the planet was to get a little bit more healed, a little bit less in the muck and the garbage, right, we would have a kinder and more humane space for all of us to live in, where we can all be loved and celebrated for how we are all alike, because we are more alike than we are different. That is not to say we shouldn't celebrate differences. We should. But we spend so much time focusing on what keeps us apart that we're missing, right? We're missing the fabric that actually brings us together and makes it available to us to be on the same playing field, rather than like us versus them mentality, right? That we have way too much of. So that to me is the other benefit. It's not just here, but it's also this ability to have that kind of ripple effect that spreads out. All right. Oh my gosh, we're almost at time. So what we're going to do is we're going to give Sandy. I've just combined.
We have a celebrity name now, Suzette.
We're going to do Sandy and Azette. I want to give each of you a chance to promote your books and tell us where to find them. And then we'll wrap up with where people can connect with you and something that you're offering the audience. So let's do book promos first. Andy, because you were forgetting about your books and your journals and all the things before we started. We're going to go with you because you need to say it out loud. What do you have for folks that you've authored yourself that you want to promote today?
All right. So I mentioned my journaling that I did just to get out of rock bottom, and I created those into a series of 60-day guided journals. I sold out of a couple of them at my last event, but I've got 3 out of the 5 here. But they're all about getting better. One is Life Gets Gayer, timely for today. But they're all about journaling 3 things you're going to do every day to make the next day better, and each one has a little different focus. And then my last book was Own Your Awkward Life Changes, which is a process that I do with my clients and help people to take the emotion out of change. What I'm really excited about is I have a new book coming out in August called Own Your Awkward Thoughts, and it's all about mastering the art of reframing and changing the way you think. It's 60 days of reflections to help you shift the way you think. And I'm doing a master session 6-week course on that starting in July. That in my link tree, there are links to my books, to my program. You can sign up by the next couple weeks and you'll get an early bird one-on-one. So lots of exciting stuff. It's all about just being yourself and making life amazing.
Awesome. Okay. So in the comments, I am putting visit Andy's link tree. So that's where they can get information on books, journals, forthcoming book, but then also, Andy, you've got a free bonus of some sort. Do you want to just take a moment to talk about that?
Yeah. So if you join my master session before July 1st, you'll get a free one-on-one coaching session. And you can always sign up for a free discovery call just to touch base, see if we make sense to work together, or even just to help you get through something that you're working on this week and you just need a little lift.
Awesome. And is that also the place where they should go just to connect with you? The
link tree has all my social media. Everything is right there. Social media, website, podcast, books. There's even a store you can get some awkward merch if you want a shirt that says Big Awkward Energy or I'm not the one making this awkward. Whatever you want.
I love it. I love it. All right. Thank you, Andy. Okay, Suzette, let's talk about the book. Where can people find The Only Way Through Is Out?
They can find it anywhere where books are sold. I love to encourage people to purchase at their independent bookstore if they have one. But you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, really anywhere books are sold. Exciting news, the audiobook is coming out a week from today. So on June 18th, you can pre-order that now on Amazon. The University of Wisconsin Press, which is my publisher, if you go to their website, all books that are somehow related to Pride are 30% off this month. So I just learned that. So if you want 30% off, go to University of Wisconsin Press site and plug in The Only Way Through Is Out, and you get a 30% discount on the book. And the audiobook is just about available. I also have a connection page. Suzette Mullen, it's not Suzette Mullen. You have the yourstoryfinder.com, connect with Suzette. That has all my, all the different ways to connect with me, to join my newsletter. I have a freebie for both. It's called a behind the scenes guide to my memoir. And it's really, it's got like outtakes, scenes that didn't make the cut. And I share why I wrote them in the first place and why I cut them in the second place. And I think it's a really fun guide for readers of the memoir, but it's also really helpful for memoir writers because I really dig into revision tactics and strategies. So I believe you also have a link to that, Allie. So those are the things I'm offering now. I, like Andy, I also always offer a free discovery call if someone is interested in exploring working together for me to be their book coach. So.
Beautiful. Okay, now I want to just plug one other thing that did not come up in conversation, Suzette. You're about to be featured in kind of a big time thing here coming up soon. So you want to just let the audience know about that?
Yeah. So, you were talking about the ripple effects, and one of the ripple effects of having a book out in the world and being more visible is that I was approached by the New York Times for an article that that's going to be in the style section sometime in the next couple of weeks in June about women coming out later in life. And I believe I'm the lead story in the article, which is really exciting. And yesterday they sent a photographer to my condo and I had a photo shoot. It was very fun and a bit surreal. So, so again, I mean, that's really fun. It's great to share that. And it is part of this whole thing we've been talking about when you are yourself, when you're living fully as yourself, the universe responds and opportunities open up that you would never imagine. I dreamed about a lot of things. I don't know if I ever dreamed that I'd have a photo shoot with the New York Times. So Here we have it.
I love it. Domino effects, everyone. Be yourself. Let the rest fall into place. The universe is watching. Source, spirit, however you wanna look at that. All right. So Andy, I'm wishing you so much luck with the forthcoming book, Own Your Awkward Thoughts. I can't wait to hear more about that. Suzette, can't wait to see the feature on New York Times, and wishing you so much more success with The Only Way Through Is Out, especially the audiobook coming out. Absolutely terrific and phenomenal. You've both been great. I'm so glad that we had this conversation. One of my favorites of the year. And I hope that this conversation too helps with the both of you having your own ripple effect out there in the world. You're already doing such great, wonderful work. So thank you so much for being here with me today. We got one more comment. Thank you for everyone. This was fabulous. We had another person jump in here to say thank you all. People were definitely tuning in to what the two of you had to say, and really it was resonating with them powerfully. So I can't wait to see what happens when people catch the replay. So folks, we're going to be back again next month with another open book broadcast on July 9th. And we're going to be talking about the bravery and seeing something all the way through. So not just starting, but finishing the thing, right? So join me again July 9th at 10:15 to join me with another few guests talking about this year's theme, bravery through the writing and publishing process. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Bye.